look, they can drop you for whatever reason. They don't have to say it's because you failed something. You could just be a complete turd and weighing your boat crew down, and they know it, and like you're just failure to perform, you're out. But with the roles for medical, they're a little bit more lenient considering.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
So going back, I class back up with class 281, and yeah, my boys were right. Like it was just as hard as it ever was, and the instructors were just as mean, and it was, I mean, they were just as badass, and the water was just as cold, and that first hell week that I went through was with class 281, and I'll never forget Sunday night. They have a evolution called Steel Pier, and we went through, if my memory serves me right, in February of 2010, and the class is out in the bay, and they've got this literal steel pier out in the bay, and they make you strip down to your skivvies. 2 o'clock in the morning, you're laying on the steel pier, jackhammering. They're spraying you with the hose, and then they make you jump in the water and tread water for however long, 20, 30 minutes, felt like 2 hours. Then they pull you out, make you lay down, and guys are just, that belt is ringing off the hook. And, we lost a lot of guys during that evolution. But going into that, for me, like, I had already done 3 weeks of buds again, and I actually came down with pneumonia, which I did not know at the time. But I couldn't stop coughing. So going into Hell Week, I remember before we went into it, my buddy, he like looked at me, and like I had like my shirt off, and he looked me up and down, and he like looked at me, and almost like with concern, because I had lost so much weight. I was just like just skinny, but like I was just like, this is the hand I'm dealt, it's like, it is what it is. Going into Hell Week, I'm coughing, but I'm performing, and I'm doing all right. And we get to Tuesday morning, and my body just starts shutting down, and I'm like, what is going on? Like I can't push past this threshold because I keep hitting this wall, and I'm like, something's up. And like my vision's getting blurry, and I'm just kind of seeing Tweety birds. And so I go up to the medical vehicle, and I'm like, hey, like, something's up. He's like, gives me this look. He's like, all right. He's like, what's going on? I'm like, I keep coughing, and I'm, hawking up shit. And he's like, well, hawk a loogie in your hand. So I spit in my hand, and it's just like this clot of blood.
Oh,
And
no.
it's like dark red. So he's like, all right, go to medical. So I go into medical, and they do their tests or whatever, and they're like, you're getting rolled. You've got pneumonia. We're taking you to the hospital. Like, God damn it. So I go to Balboa, and it turns out I have pneumonia and SIPE, which SIPE is swimmer-induced pulmonary edema. And that's basically your lungs are filled up with fluid, and it's from being in the water. And I'm like, oh my God, like another roll, another class I got to go through first phase again, because I didn't hit my checkpoint.
I can't believe you have the fortitude to move forward as far as you did.
So I lied earlier when I said I never thought about quitting. The only time I ever thought about quitting was after that roll. And I wasn't in training. I wasn't getting beat. I wasn't in the surf. I was in my car on like a Saturday morning, like a week or two after I had gotten rolled. I knew I was going to class back up with the next class that I was ready to class up with, which was class 283. But I'm in my car, and I'm driving, and I'm going to Imperial Beach to get a coffee and a burrito. I'm wearing my hoodie. I got my flip-flops on, my board shorts, got the heat on because it was cold. And I'm driving, and I'm thinking, and I'm like, another first phase. This will be my fourth first phase and my third Hell Week. I'm like, this is more than I bargained for, like, if you're fortunate, you get one, maybe two rolls, but you don't go through four first phases. Definitely not 2-3 Hell Weeks. And I just remember thinking, like, I do not want to do this again. And so I started thinking about options. I'm like, okay, I've been in the Navy about 4 years. I can get out, use my GI Bill, go back, go to school. Or, my dad was a cop. He's probably got some connections in the police department. I could go be a cop. I'm like, well, I hate school and I'm not good with authority. Like I don't want to be a cop. It's like, well, what do I want to do? It's like, I want to be a SEAL. Well, how do you do that? You got to reload. You got to get back out there. And something we talked about on the phone that I've failed to mention before in other podcasts that I've been on is that, and I think this is the key that helped me get through training, or at least it added to my arsenal of never quit, is I heard an instructor say once, and I carry it with me to this day, that training starts as soon as you don't want to do it anymore, right? So if we drop down and we do push-ups, right? You may do 100 push-ups with no problem, but you get to 101 and it starts to hurt. That's when the training starts. And it's different for everybody, like some people have different thresholds of pain and tolerance or whatever, but as soon as you feel that, like that's when you know the training has started.
I love that philosophy. I teach that to my kids. I'm very fortunate. My 11-year-old and my 14-year-old come to the gym with me, and they'll do 8 reps of whatever, right? And I said, you understand that of those 8 reps you did, maybe 1 or 2 of them had any value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's real, man. And that's what I remember thinking. It's like, okay, this is where training starts. It's like you did all these other ones, not easily, but you did them, right? And you got through it and you were crushing your evolutions, but now you're at a point where you don't want to do it anymore. It's like, are you going to give up? Are you going to quit? Or are you going to man up?
Then you got to live with that, though.
Yeah, man.
Oof.
And that was the thing. It's like, it was never about like, can I live with myself? It's like, I want to be a SEAL, as much as I, hate failure. It's like I had a goal that I wanted to achieve, and it was by any means necessary, no matter how many tries it took, no matter how much pain I had to endure, no matter how cold I got, no matter how broken I got. It was like, this is all I want to do. And I'm at a point right now where I don't want to do what it takes to get to that point, but it's, what else are you going to do? There's no shortcuts. There's no like skipping a level here. It's like,
the only way to get there is through. It's not
right,
around.
Exactly.
But you also don't want to be one of these guys who quit, who rang the bell, who got dropped. And they have great stories.
Yeah.
They got some great stories,
Sure.
and I'm sure that they use it in bars to pick up women. Hey, I went through buds, and there's some bullshit. That's how some bullshit happened, and I wasn't able to finish.
Yeah.
You want to be that guy who, no, I stuck it out. The key component to any law enforcement officer being the best version of themselves is through education. Sherry Alsop is a leader in providing that education to police agencies, preparing them for the all too frequent dealings with sexual assault victims.
You've seen Sherry on episode 169 of the Suffering Podcast. She survived incest and almost daily sexual assault, so she comes from a place of experience and true understanding.
Sherry has the intelligence, commitment, and compassion to open the eyes of those on the front lines, while providing the tools to effectively deal with a difficult situation. Sherry's instruction comes from experience and multiple certifications.
Training with Sherry will offer on-site training, customized schedules, specialized instruction tailored from a victim's perspective.
You are going to hear Sherry's heart-wrenching but inspiring survivor story. Learn proprietary trauma-informed training techniques, uncovered victim-centered interview methods while earning continuing education credits according to your state guidelines. To be the best, you must learn from the best. Let Sherry also guide you through the delicate cases of sexual assault from a victim's point of view.
Be a source of comfort to those victims affected by these traumatic experiences while producing a solid investigation and uncovering details that often go unnoticed.
To find out more or to contact Sherry Alsop, go to sherryalsop.com. That's SHERRIEALLSUP.com.
It's only after, years later, and even just being out of the teams and reflecting on my career, that I'm like, wow, like my story's pretty cool, because how many people do you know have gone through 2.5 hell weeks and 4 first phases? How many people do you know are even SEALs, right? So it's like, it's
out of the thousands of people I know 2.
Yeah. Right?
I know 2.
Right.
So that's worse statistics than the people who go through buds all at once.
And I had a buddy who he had the same almost the exact same career path as I did. He was a little bit ahead of me. So when I first went to Buds, he was retreading through Buds. So this was his second attempt. And the same thing happened to him. He got dropped for pool comp. He went out to the fleet. He came back and he made it through. And we used to joke. He's like, anybody can go through one hell week. It's like it takes a real man to do two. It's like, but I'm all about the small percentages. The small percentage of guys that makes it through hell week, that gets dropped after hell week, and then that comes back and does the whole thing and makes it through. Like that's a very small percentage of guys, So as it was, I stopped feeling sorry for myself. I realized that I'm here to do one thing, and I classed back up with 283 and made it through Hell Week with them. Went on to second phase, and what do you know? Rolled again. Beginning of second phase, just like the last time. So rolled before Hell Week in my first class, made it through, rolled at the beginning of second phase for injuries, came back, made it through Hell Week, or got rolled in Hell Week, made it to second phase, got rolled again. This time it was another medical roll, and this time it was for shin splints. So at this point, before I had said it was one performance roll, one medical roll. Well, the medical rolls, they can drop you for whatever reason. They don't have to say it's because you failed something. You could just be a complete turd and weighing your boat crew down, and they know it, and you're just failure to perform, you're out. But with the rolls for medical, they're a little bit more lenient considering.
Your body's going through so much stress.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I mean, it's a case-by-case basis. So for me, getting rolled in Hell Week for pneumonia, it's like, okay, this guy's coughing up blood. All right, we'll give him a roll. And then getting to second phase, and Eddie Gallagher took us on a nice slow jog that gave me shin splints up to from my feet to my knees. I couldn't walk. And it was at the end of first phase going into second phase. And I had my legs were cracked up. And
Thanks, Eddie.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy. But it adds to the story, I ended up getting rolled again at the beginning of second phase, and then class back up with 287. That's how long it took me to recover. I was beat to shit, man. 2 back-to-back first phases in Hell Weeks.
But now you're out of chances.
That's how I looked at it.
You're out. There's no logical way where they're going to let you if you get rolled again.
Well, even performance. I hadn't had any performance issues up to this point, but I wasn't taking any chances on that. I was not leaving this up to the judges this time, So when I got rolled into 287, I'm like, this is it. And I made it through all the way with 287, but not without more challenges. So going back to pool week, I ended up back on Friday of the third week of pool week, that same test that I got dropped for. I failed the first 2. And in my mind going into them, because I had already done everything up until this point. And I'm like, going into it, I'm like, I don't want to give this more attention than what it deserves, right? So I just want to, I know my procedures, I know what to do. I'm just going to go in there and do it. And then I fail the first 2 tests, and I'm like, fuck. I'm at the same point I was 3 years ago. And I'm like, there's no way I'm making the same mistake again. And I will say this. When I got dropped, and I was talking to my dad on the phone, he said something that haunted me. And he's like, look, remember how you feel right now. This pain, this sorrow, this grief. He's like, you never want to feel this again. Don't let it happen again.
Dude, so let me interject here for
Go ahead.
a moment. So when Mike took his life, I said it on an Instagram Live, and those people can take a look at it. After it happened, I put it out May 10th or May 11th. I said, I'm not going to numb this pain, because I was hurting. I was really hurting.
Yeah.
I'm not going to numb this pain. I'm not going to anesthetize this pain. I need to feel this pain because this feeling sucks.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that I never feel this way again about anybody that I care about. And it set me on a crusade. And that's how I started the non-today movement, where, hey, listen, no matter what happens, we're just not going to do this shit today.
Yeah.
But I said the same exact thing. That pain is there for a reason. It's there to teach you
Totally.
not to feel this way again, and to do anything you possibly can to make sure that doesn't happen.
Exactly.
That's a great
Yeah.
Your father's a very wise man.
Yeah. I mean, and I used that. I remembered that, and I used that. And that weekend, instead of sitting in the room thinking about this test, I was like, I got to get to work. So I went out, I got those wooden tanks. I went out to the grinder. They had like a pad you could put on the grinder so you can put your knees on it and do your procedures. And I would fill my mask up with water and hold my breath and do my procedures as many times as I could on a breath hold with like a mask full of water, just to simulate being underwater as close as I could get to, like before I thought, what good is this test? I'm not underwater. Like, what's this test going to do? Well, I'll tell you what it did. It secured my mind, and I did 6 hours on the grinder on Saturday and 6 hours on the grinder on Sunday. And I actually ended up breaking up with my girlfriend over it because it was Easter weekend, and she was giving me a hard time about not having dinner with her family on Easter Sunday. I'm like, look, this is not working out. And what's her name? Who cares, right? It was like, this is all that matters, right? So 12 hours of training, Monday morning comes around, and I crushed that test. And what's crazy is the instructor I had for that test, that was his last class, because he had been an instructor there for 2 years. And the class I got dropped from, so I got dropped in 266, that was his first class as an instructor. And this was his last class. That's how long it had been since I had been dropped, and how long he had been there as an instructor. So I was just, it just came full circle, man. So having him be my instructor for that test and completely blowing it out of the water and just being like, I did it. I put my boot on the head of this demon that has been haunting me for years, and it's on to new frontiers, new territory, unexplored territory. So, and I didn't make the same mistake of, I got it, I'm done. So I just took that momentum and I just kept driving, man. I kept my foot on the gas and I didn't let up.
Then you're able to wear that. You finally make it through all the rest of the phases of buds. You're able to put that pin that trident on. That feeling of pride has to be overwhelming, because there's been a lot of people who've made it through buds, but there's been very few who have made it through buds as many times as you've gone through it. I'm looking at all the classes: 264, 266, 281, 283, 287,
265 too.
265. So there's another one. I missed one. That is an insane amount of pressure, torture, pain that you put your body through. Suffering. Oh man, you've suffered more than most. But self-induced.
Yeah.
Self-induced.
Sure.
Now all of a sudden you get out and your mind pretty much has to be bulletproof at this point.
I mean, being a new guy, team guy, is the best feeling in the world.
You're in this fraternity now.
Yeah, you are part of the brotherhood now. Yeah. I mean, but that doesn't mean that you can just, go beat your chest at the bars and pick up chicks and not work out anymore and whatever. It's like, that's why they say the only easy day is yesterday, and that's the truth. It's like nobody gave two shits about my struggle to make it through buds. Nobody asked, nobody cared, and I didn't volunteer it. It's like, all right, you're here now, get to work. It's like, keep going.
Every Navy SEAL has probably got a suffering story such as yours.
Sure.
And everybody's going to think theirs is harder than the next person.